This is all a new normal for us as we're figuring out what the new strategy is, how our customers are using technology in different ways. It opens up a lot of opportunities for customer success and new ways of engaging with our customers better than we have before.
Hello, my customer success friends. Irit Eizips here for CSM Practice, the customer success consulting firm. Today, we're going to talk about how did Gimbal retain 100% of their customers during COVID-19. And I have Tiffany Morin with me join the discussion and share with you what did her team do to get this phenomenal result during such hectic times. I'm sure we can all learn from that experience and get some of those tips and practices to implement in even our day-to-day lives after the pandemic, to just learn how to nail the customer experience, value for customers, and make sure that they stay with us in the worst of times. Hello, Tiffany.
Hello, everyone. Customer success community. I'm Tiffany. Welcome.
Awesome. Tiffany, before we start, I'd like just to remind everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on the notifications so that anytime we release a new video just like this one, you're the first one to know about it. Tiffany, tell me a little bit about COVID-19 at Gimbal.
Sure. So Gimbal is a location services solution. Really, the success of our product is driving in-store traffic, enhancing customer experience while in venue, while in store. And so needless to say, with COVID, a lot of the success criteria of our solution changed. And so we knew that we'd have impact to our business. We knew that we needed to adapt and really work with our customers during these, what we call new normal and changing times.
So things have changed. How did you know that the value statement essentially changed for your customers? What were the first things that happened that kind of indicate that your current value statement is not going to hold water during the pandemic?
So we worked very closely with our customers right as we heard events being canceled. Once we had an idea of what their likely strategy would be, we knew that they were shifting from really physical transactions to digital. And so based on that, short term, we consulted them on, all right, here's how our customers are leveraging us, given things are still dynamic, they're still changing, there's still a lot of unknowns. But what we do know is that stores are slowly closing. And so what you can do as an example, instead of driving store traffic, drive awareness when you know someone's on site to other digital channels. Maybe it's, hey, here's a link to free shipping, for example, when you know someone is at or near your physical location. Because at the end of the day, it's not the best customer experience if your store is closed. And so not only are you raising awareness for what's changing at a store level, but also shifting where they may be purchasing. And so that was short term where we saw the biggest impact, was really being prescriptive, consulting our customers on how to use us given their new strategy, and also knowing that likely this will change, likely this will be dynamic. And so where could we start thinking really long term about the new changing world?
Tiffany, this is an extraordinary story because you didn't just retain 100% of your customers, you retain 100% of the customers of the worst hit industry.
Right. We work with retail, really anyone with a brick and mortar location and an app, they're our customers. We had to act quick with COVID.
So that's amazing. So you work with the retail, the sports, the event, e-commerce sites, all of those we know were hit really hard at the pandemic, yet you retain 100% by shifting the conversation and the prescriptive value that you can provide to things that they can do right now that they need to shift into.
Right.
Now you have a large team, right?
Relatively large. We have around 3 CSMs now. And then, obviously with COVID, we kept in mind all aspects of our business. So it just wasn't the customer success team that really kept in mind the changing world. It was marketing, it was finance, it was sales. And so we worked together with as large of a group as we could to come up with one cohesive company COVID action plan, as we called it.
You didn't just come up with this ideas of what can you provide to customers in terms of value by yourself. You had to actually collaborate with other cross-functional teams.
Correct. So as COVID was happening, we knew that our business would be impacted. And so the first thing that I did was I changed our at-risk forecasting. And so we knew that there'd be certain industries that were more impacted. We knew that there'd be certain customers that we would be more impacted. For example, Were they at risk of bankruptcy even before this happened? Did they have a past history of late payments, for example? Because that was another risk factor for us. And so quickly being able to identify, looking at our entire customer base, what is the impact to our business? And working with finance first and foremost to say, all right, here's the potential impact from a cash flow standpoint, from a churn standpoint, from a revenue standpoint, all those key financial health indicators, and coming up with a solution with our CFO and controller to say, all right, this is what makes sense for Gimbal. We know we have to make concessions short term for some of our customers. What is within reason? What makes sense, financial sense for us to really offer? Because at the end of the day, we knew we had to make concessions for some customers. And I took a long-term approach. Ultimately, our customers have been with us for 4 or 5 years. How could we keep them around to stay with us for another 4 to 5 years? And sometimes that means making short-term concessions.
Excellent. So it sounds like you started segmenting your customer base based on payment history. Was there any other factor in terms of how did you prioritize the accounts?
So payment history, we also looked at potential, like, does this company have a higher risk of bankruptcy? What's their overall financial health? Because they may be making payments, but if they somehow go bankrupt, then that puts them at a higher risk than others. Those that were impacted more short-term, like sports, where all of a sudden things are completely canceled. Short-term, we have to think about those things because they may be more at risk short-term than maybe our longer-term customers who are saying, well, this will come back to a somewhat new normal eventually.
Okay, so you looked at payment history, and then what about, like, for example, a renewal date?
Renewal date was another one, and so that was key. Thankfully, most of our renewals were in a spot where our higher at-risk customers didn't renew until later on. So we were able to act quickly and really work with our customers on a day-to-day basis, partner with them to understand what their financial situation was at the time. And so regardless of renewal date, we still made concessions. We did contract amendments for potentially 3 months. And I can talk about really what our tiered approach to concessions was. But renewal date did play a factor. If it was a shorter term renewal date, say it was coming up within the next couple months or this quarter, we were able to offer certain types of concessions. That really fed into our financial model for what concessions can we offer depending on the customer, their payment history, their financial health, their renewal date, but also their annual contract value with us played a big role into that.
Interesting. So you have 4 factors to decide what is going to be your approach for concessions in terms of cash flow and payments.
Correct.
You also use this segmentation to decide what is going to be your advice for these people or how you're going to prioritize the touch cadence with those customers during the pandemic?
Correct. And so we took a vertical approach to engagement. So we knew our retail customers would be impacted differently than our sports and entertainment. So retail customers, really their use cases shifted towards changing engagement to different digital channels. And then long-term, focusing on, instead of driving in-store traffic, that in-store customer experience, it was, what are curbside use cases? What are buy online, pickup in stores? How could we get someone as seamlessly in and out of stores as possible while still engaging with our brand? That use case doesn't make sense for our sports teams. If you're at a particular tournament or racing event, the use case is shifted towards, all right, how could we help with contactless payments? How could we help with different crowd capacity management? So the use cases varied by vertical. Really, we engage with them in a very similar fashion. We have a very high touch model. We always have. And so our CSMs have a very close relationship with the majority of our customers. And so from an engagement standpoint, we increased the high touch model as best we could because that allowed us to stay closer to our customers' business so we weren't ever surprised. And then just shifted the use cases that we went to market with, how we consulted with them in a way that made sense for their particular business. And we grouped that by industry so that it allowed us to better scale.
Okay, so you, on the one hand, you developed how you're gonna look into financial concessions by the segmentation. And on the other hand, you developed a value prop that was distinctly related to each one of your customer industries, which is the retail, sports, and events that would be applicable for them during COVID and all these changes that were going in this new norm. How did customers react initially? And did you have like a different strategy to reacting or to interacting with them in the short term versus the, as we progress during the pandemic? Do things change now versus how you did things in mid-March, April?
Yeah, very much so. So as the pandemic was happening, we knew our customers were going to be closing stores. We knew their events were going to be canceled, as mentioned before. And so we engaged with them very quickly. We have built a good relationship with them for them to have an open and honest conversation with us about their financial needs, about their short-term goals, what their short-term strategies were, and we could be prescriptive. So short-term, it was all hands on deck. Let's understand what customers are the most impacted, and let's work with them based on the concessions that we've come up with finance. So that was short-term. It was more, all right, let's be as reactionary as possible.
Got it.
Long-term, we knew that the use cases, the value prop shifted. But in my mind, a lot of the new use cases like curbside, buy online, pick up in stores, they were always on retailers, our sports teams, our events. It was always on their mind. But the changing dynamic just made it become a strategy that was critical a lot sooner than they thought it would be. Not only did our CSMs really consult them or prescribe, hey, here's what our customers are doing, here's what the market's doing, but our product also shifted. So thankfully, we have an agile development structure where we're able to say, all right, based on these new use cases, how could we improve our product to really fit into that, fit in with how our customers are using us now? And then from a marketing standpoint, doing step-by-step instructions in terms of, hey, here's how you implement these new use cases with us. Here's how you implement contactless solutions. Here's exactly a developer's guide to getting it done with us. So short-term, offering concessions, being as reactionary and involved with our customers as possible. And then long-term, all right, here's a playbook for what your new strategy is, and here's exactly how you do it with Gimbal.
Would you say that in normal times, you wouldn't have looked at the same metrics as you did during the pandemic to determine the potential health of a customer?
Correct. As mentioned, one of the primary use cases, success criteria for us, is driving traffic. And dwell times. Is a user, spending certain times in specific areas of the store? Are they interacting with our in-store feedback surveys, for example? And so obviously that shifted. You don't want customers, at least short-term, to be dwelling in stores as much. And so the use case has shifted for, all right, how could we leverage our technology, one, for these new use cases, but what are the new success criteria? So maybe it's utilizing our product for buy online, pick up in store. Were we able to notify a store associate? Did it decrease the time of an order pickup, of a customer having to wait in line for their order? Instead, it's more seamless. And so those types of success metrics compared to, are they dwelling in store? Are they having, a good experience while in store? It's, are they having a seamless experience with our brand when they're in store?
I think these are the elements essentially that we've seen it through our survey research as well that we've done for customer success in COVID-19 is changing the health score, resegmenting your client base, coming up with a super reactive and effective communication with customers around payment concessions, and then coming up with new value statements and value playbooks to make sure that we are supporting them in being financially healthy going forward. So tremendous job, Tiffany.
Yeah, definitely. Really the biggest impact to us and what made a difference was being in day-to-day with our customers and having that consultative relationship with them, and ultimately taking a long-term approach. I think if we took the stance where we're not doing concessions with our customers, we would have had probably a larger short-term impact, but also even larger, longer impact to our business. So really that successful relationship, it's taking that long-term approach was key to us really retaining 100% of our customer base.
And you also worked with your partners to then take what was successful and coaching them on it? Or did you also get their feedback on their successes? And tell me about that.
Yeah, so that brings in another dynamic. Gimbal has resellers. And so not only was I partnering with our internal teams, our finance, our sales teams, our customer success teams, but I had to do the same for our partners. And so I took the same exact approach. It's the partners are an extension of our business. They're an extension of our team. Yeah. We follow the same practices. We did offer different concessions because at the end of the day, the concessions that we offered had to make financial sense for us, for our resellers, and for our customers. And so they may have been different. But regardless, our reseller partners had a strategy that was unique to them, but also scalable for both businesses.
Wonderful story, and I really appreciate you for sharing it. Guys, look at the comments below. There's a link to our infographic that supports a lot of the moves that Tiffany just shared with us. If you wanted to follow that as a guideline for things to continuously doing with your own strategy, that would be super helpful. Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing your insights. Guys, if you like this story, go ahead and share it with others on Twitter or LinkedIn. Like this video if you learned something new. Add to the comments any questions you have for Tiffany. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn your notifications on. I'll see you at the next video.